Welcome to Cincy Entrepreneurs Unplugged, the podcast where real entrepreneurs share real stories. I'm Jay Mueller, your host, and each month we dive into candid conversations about the highs, lows, and lessons of being an entrepreneur. Whether you're starting out or leveling up, these unfiltered journeys will inspire and fuel your path forward. I am extremely excited today to have our good friend Guido. And Guido, you're going to have to say your last name for me because I can't pronounce it.
Fileppo.
Fileppo, thank you. So we have Guido Fileppo with us. And as you know, EO is a global organization. Last time I checked, we had, I think, north of 20,000 members in chapters across the world. Guido is the current president of EO Italy. And he and I had the pleasure of meeting at GLC, the Global Leadership Conference in Cape Town, South Africa a few years ago. My entire family, my wife and kids, just visited Guido and his beautiful family at his gorgeous home on Lake Como earlier this year. So I'm excited today to learn more about Guido's story and also dig into an idea that came up when we were visiting with Guido, this idea of being international. In today's world, more and more people are designing their lives. Entrepreneurs certainly have that power. In choosing to live either in a country or a community that is not where they're from. And there's, speaking from personal experience, living in Spain and running my business that is based in my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, there are so many virtues and challenges that come with that decision. And I'm hoping in our time today, Guido, that we can dig into this idea through some shared experiences and at the same time help some of our listeners better understand what it means that EO is a global community of entrepreneurs. I think that's something we talk about with prospective members, but it's not something we often maybe provide a certain level of color for to help people understand what that really looks and feels like. So I'm gonna shut up for a minute and Guido, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to live on beautiful Lake Como, be the CEO of this very unique niche business, and the president of EO Italy?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. So yes, as you said, EO is an international organization. Italy is still a small chapter. We're trying to grow. But essentially, I'll start the story from the beginning. So I'm very international in the sense that I've lived in many countries, but I decided to start my entrepreneurship journey in my home country of Italy. So I'm not originally from Lake Como, but I bought a business in Milan, and we decided to live in Lake Como just because, it's a nice place to be, and it's not far from the office. So essentially, I started my, career in London, and then I moved to Australia, where I met my wife. So my wife is Australian. And then we moved to Switzerland, then to France, and then again to Italy. So we can talk about that international aspect there. It's always been there for me, and I think EO brings that a little bit, but we'll come to that later. My entrepreneurship journey started, as I probably mentioned to you, Jay, over dinner, started with my MBA, where I realized that I actually could purchase a business rather than starting one. And that's what I did 6 years ago. And I bought a small business delivering skincare solution, especially in the healthcare business in Italy. And since then, the company grew. I got to know EO through one of my investors. I was a member of EO. And, it's been a rapid journey for me. Like within 3 years, I got finance, membership, and then president. It's been a very steep learning curve on that end as well.
That's amazing. And I want to dig more into that international journey. I was trying to take some quick notes on the different places you mentioned you had lived, but lost track quickly.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was amazing when we were visiting your family, and it was you just sort of have that moment where you can feel that someone else has had a shared experience. No matter what that experience is, I think oftentimes our connections come from some sort of shared experience. And to me, it felt like a very, when we first met at GLC and then also at your home recently, which, by the way, I have to paint the picture. If you have not been to Lake Como or seen photos, it is stunningly gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous mountain lake in northern Italy. And Guido has a beautiful home that overlooks the lake that is close to Milan, where your business is. But that shared international experience and with our children as well. I could just see how our kids, it just seemed like such an easy and natural fit for them, speaking multiple languages. And I think they can just, kids just sort of sense when there is that connection on some sort of shared experience level. And they just immediately took off, and it was like the most normal thing in the world that my kids were in Italy, connecting with your children in a different language, right? That is maybe the native tongue for both of potentially, or for one or the other. Before we go into the international piece, Guido, you said something that I find fascinating. You said you became an entrepreneur when you got your MBA and realized you could buy a business versus starting one. Can you help us understand a little bit more awareness?
Yes, sure. I mean, the model that I followed after my MBA, it's very popular in the US, not so popular in Europe. At least it wasn't popular, 8 or 9 years ago when I started fundraising. It's called the Search Fund. And essentially, it's young entrepreneurs who have an idea to buy an SME, so an existing business that has recurring cash flow, profitable business existing for a long time, usually like a boring business or B2B kind of very stable business. And then essentially raises money from investors in order to buy the business, and he becomes a CEO. So essentially, like a small private equity deal, with the main difference is that actually the promoter of that investment vehicle actually doesn't do it for as a financial vehicle, but to become an entrepreneur. So he becomes a CEO. And so when I learned about this, I was like, oh, this is perfect for me. I always wanted to come back to Italy after having worked in Australia, in England, and in Switzerland. And then, for me, it was the perfect way to go. And I think, right now we talk a lot about, especially in the US, a lot of talk about entrepreneurship through acquisition. Or, if you look at scaling up models, one of the ways to grow your business is also through acquisitions as well. And that's a perfect way to actually start your entrepreneurship career like I did. Or to grow your business through acquiring another business. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't really think about that. We always think about growing with our own strength, but sometimes acquiring a competitor in another geography or a vertical business in a line of business could be a good way to grow our business. And by the way, that's what I did last year when we bought a small business in the UK doing skincare products as well, but focus more on the e-commerce bit. So our business in Italy is mainly B2B. The business we acquired in England is mainly B2C. So that's also complementary. And so that's, once you start acquiring business, it's fun.
That's beautiful. They always say the first one is the hardest, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, something you said there made me think of a lot of the LAC Bridge members, EO members that we met in South Africa. That's the Latin American Caribbean Bridge chapter. We just sort of fell into this group of EO members from a couple different chapters in Mexico and then LAC Bridge. And one of the things I learned from them, just by hearing their story, was just the way, kind of what you just said. It was like their perspective on growth was very different than mine. Where mine is, I think I'm still trying to learn what you're talking about. Hey, there's other ways to do this versus just growing the thing that I have. Organically, I can move into strategic acquisitions and other acquisition models. But their perspective on ownership of, I'm going to say, enterprises was on a whole other level than what I was accustomed to. Guido, how do you think your time abroad in any of the different phases of your life influenced the way you show up as an entrepreneur or as a leader?
That's an interesting question. I think the broader your perspective is, and it comes back to what you were saying earlier. I mean, the connection that you do with other people already, like I feel whenever I go to an international event of entrepreneurs organization and, you're all in together, you're all entrepreneurs, there's already a level of connection. And once you have that second level of connection, which is international experience, it's as you said, it really creates links, right? But I think that experience, whether it's international experience, the US also, it can be like interstate experience, right? Because the US is so big,
Sure.
It could be classified as international experience. If you have a business in Florida and a business in Washington State, I mean, they are completely different areas, right? But at least that broad perspective really gives you a sense of humility, because in the sense you're always learning. When you move country, you don't know the rules, you don't know the system. So it kind of like always sets you back like 1 or 2 levels, right? You think you know everything, and then you're back, now I have to learn these rules about this thing.
It's absolutely.
And then if you it's a second level of difficulty, right? So you're always constantly learning, and like it's the continuous growth and like continuous thirst for learning what drives you. Like the more you're international, the more you can seek opportunities, you can bounce ideas, like you said, with other countries and other ideas. So being a business owner, I had a lot of the Anglo-Saxon mentality in terms of business. So meritocracy, showing up for results and not, because you've been there for 15 years. Okay, that's stereotypes, right? But that's also one of the reasons why I didn't start my career in Italy or in France or in Spain. It's a lot based on your age and like your experience. Whereas I feel like, at least at the time in London, 23, like you have a lot of opportunities, right? So I tried to bring that in Italy. More business, but we're trying to make the best of both worlds and do what we do best in Italy, but also try to learn international experiences, business, but also for our culture and our people. So I think that's the way I try to do it.
I love that. It made me. For those of you that don't know, I live in Spain. I've been here for 3.5 years, and I'm here partly because I married my amazing wife Adela, who is from Spain. The first time I came to visit here in Spain was in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. Shortly after I had completed the Erasmus International Student Exchange Program, met her studying abroad through that program in the Netherlands. That was that was a life-changing moment for so many reasons. But something you said made me think of one of those first interactions with my late father-in-law, Jesus, an amazing man and entrepreneur. What I'm going to call, and I'm painting broad strokes here, but marrying a more traditional business approach that I saw here in Spain with, some of the more, the word that comes to mind actually is aggressive compared to Spain, business practices in the United States. Where there's sort of less rules about what you can do, right, or what people would expect you to do in the United States versus here in Spain. Certainly at that time, 20 years ago, a lot of that has evolved, but there's still a thread of truth there in the way things operate today. But one of the things that just struck me that I've tried to hang on to throughout my career is the way that my father-in-law here in Spain interacted with his clients and built relationships with his clients. It was on a whole other level than what I had seen in the United States. For example, he had a business that manufactured waxes and other things that helped fruit and other produce maintain their freshness when they go to market. Right? We're in Valencia, the land of oranges, so there's oranges all over. So that was his business, but he would have these international clients from all over the world, from California, from Israel, from Iran, from everywhere, and really anywhere where there was citrus being grown, really. And those families, the families of his clients are still over 10 years after he passed and over, 15 or so years since he sold his business. Our families are still connected with the families of his clients because that was the kind of relationship that he built with them. And I latched onto that and I loved it because for me, business, it really is all about the people, right? Like the challenging parts are all about the people and the fun parts are all about the people. One of the, what I really love is that connection. And when I saw that it almost like gave me permission, I think, to build those kind of relationships with my clients. Whereas had I not seen that, I would have maybe felt like, I don't know, I was being like extra or like that wasn't the expectation. No. Guido, when I think about international experience, there's in entrepreneurship in general, the way we operate and the way we evolve personally and professionally is weaved into the way that we show up. I'm just going to say at work, right? As a leader, as a manager, as a business owner. How do you think living abroad has shifted your sense of identity, personally or professionally?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. Because I lived probably more than 20 years outside of Italy. Since I was 12, essentially, I moved to France and then London, and all the other countries that are listed, I always felt like really Italian in my mind, right? So for me, like I was, Italian, and Italian culture, and I always felt like, I was always open-minded, so I always felt really welcome. I felt at home, whether it was in, Switzerland or Australia. I mean, Australia is pretty easy to live in, so it was really easy to kind of get used to the culture. But then I came back to Italy, and I'm really happy because the lifestyle. I mean, now you've experienced it now, Jay.
Wonderful.
Lifestyle is great. There's great food. There's great wine. People are really nice, and it's really good. But I actually realized that I'm not Italian at all. So that's why, like you're saying, you meet people with international experience, you constantly, immediately connect because there is something different. Like I'm Italian, but like I have a different connection to everything. To a different experience, it gives you a much broader perspective rather than having only your own, little town or little region perspective. And so we really feel like, sometimes you do feel like you're a bit like a foreigner in everywhere you go, right? Because you don't really fit into the category of like one nationality or one culture. That's the beauty of it, I think. So I think, so personally now, I consider myself to be more or less a citizen of the world. And I accept everything that comes to me. And in terms of work, as I mentioned before, like it really helps you to kind of drive the best practices that you see all around, right? And then you try to do it. Sometimes it doesn't fit in the culture, There's some things that would work really well in America that, in Italy wouldn't work, not because they're not good idea, but people think it's not acceptable at work, for example. There are also things that happen, as you said, in Italy or that wouldn't be considered, appropriate in an Anglo-Saxon world, right? But it's up to you to be adaptable and to make things fit. So it's a difficult question to answer, but I think you see where I'm going. Like I think, like I said before, the broader your perspective, the better your chances are actually doing something great, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much there in that answer that resonates with me. It's almost like once you sort of cross that line and you've had these other experiences, it's a blessing, and I don't want to say a curse because it's not a curse, but there's a version of it where once you've lived that, once you've experienced those broader horizons, I almost sometimes envy the people that I know both here in Spain and in my hometown of Cincinnati who have just been rooted in their hometown in that area their whole life, because there's such a virtue in that as well, right? And sometimes they go, man, if I just committed to this one community for my entire life and not had this bug to see and experience all the things. What could I have done with that? How could I show up in that way, just being that person in that community versus, now I've experienced all these things. You can't go back to that. Even if you said you moved back to Italy, but you realized when you moved back to Italy, I think your words were, I realized how un-Italian I was, or something like that, right? Like that I wasn't actually national.
No, exactly.
You can't go backwards. Do you think there's a version of yourself? This has been very much in my consciousness recently, being 3.5 years into moving to Spain. Do you think there's a version of yourself that only exists when you are outside of your home country, or we'll say home community, whatever that is for you?
Well, probably yes, because as with everything, you idealize, either your home country, or you're coming from, or I don't know if you have this experience, but for me, having moved around a lot, sometimes I go back, for example, to Paris and see my friends from back then, or even my school friends from Italy, from my hometown. You think like 5 years past.
But Paris is where you lived, so everyone can understand the context. You moved there when you were around 10, is that right?
Yeah, it was around 12. Yeah, okay. I lived there from 12 to 21. Yeah, so I've still a lot of friends there. And sometimes when you go back, and I left Paris when I was 21, and sometimes you go back and you have dinner out or having some drinks, and you don't realize actually you think time has passed for you, but you don't think time has passed for anyone else. And I don't know if you have that experience going back home to the US, like, oh yeah, actually it's been 5 years or whatever, 4 years that I haven't seen you. Like things change, stuff happens. So it's a strange feeling. So of course, when you leave a place, you tend to remember it the way it was when you left it. And even if you go back there from time to time, it's still like, you're still confronted to your memory, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pivot a little here and move the conversation into global experiences through EO. You've connected with EO members all over the world. You're the president of EO Italy. As the president of EO Italy, how do you encourage members to take advantage of global events, whether it's GLC or other opportunities?
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. We're trying to do that now. I mean, the last year or so, because I've been elected president for 2 years here, because we're a small chapter, so we try to drive change through 2 years at a time. But for me, essentially, EO was a breath of fresh air. Like, I mean, of course, the forum, we have so much value in that. People actually live and breathe for forums and don't really. But for me, like, the value of EO started like as soon as I joined the board, which is essentially after 6 months. But and then be able to go to GLC. Actually, my first GLC was in Cape Town, South Africa, where we actually met completely randomly because we were in the wrong party, hosted by Latin America, and nobody had anything to do with Latin America. But also that shows you the power of the international community. As I mentioned, like as soon as we do now international events, just one. From rambling, I send to structure my answer. So for me, being part of the board is essentially getting access to all the international events of EO, which are essentially the Global Leadership Conference, the European Leadership Conference. This year was in Geneva. Last year was in Mallorca. And then the President's Meeting, of course, went in Oman, went to Berlin. This year is going to be in, next year, 2026, is going to be in Sri Lanka. So there's already like a good travel opportunity there. And there you meet with presidents and other board members that are from a lot of other countries. And it's, straight away a connection, like it is CEO, right? And for example, we did a few international events in Italy. So the way we try to drive the international bit in Italy now, it's, first of all, we started last year by introducing an additional voucher. It's probably, most of your listeners will know, like when you join EO, you get this voucher to attend some events, right? And then we added also the Italy voucher. And so we'd give this voucher only if people attend an international event, whether it was GLC, whether it was, a learning event in another country. So we started doing that. And then actually at the president's meeting in Oman, with the president of France and Ireland, we designed this 3-nation event, which was just completed now in October. So we did an event in Paris, an event in Ireland, and an event in Italy. To do exactly what you said, like to excite and entice members to actually participate in international events. And so, we had like maybe in Paris, we had like about 6 members each from Italy and Ireland. In Ireland, we had probably 10 people from Italy and maybe 10 people from France. In Italy, we had about 6 people from Ireland and 10 from Paris. And there were people also from other chapters who were open to everyone. And that really creates a community. And the best example is the forum, right? What we call the mashup forum, with people from other chapters that we've never met before, maybe just for a drink, whatever, the night before. And, you go into forum mode and straight away it's deep. And it's just crazy. And a lot of people were skeptical, like, sometimes they haven't experienced that. And then after the first experience of the Mashup Forum, like they were completely, overwhelmed. But, the effectiveness of the forum, you don't know anyone, but the forum format works. And you meet people with other experiences that are able to share their experiences and their updates with everyone else. So I think that's super powerful. So for me, EO is actually, giving me the opportunity already as a member by attending whatever event I want, but especially as a board member to really be part of the community internationally, and that's where most of the value lies. I mean, I have a lot of value in my chapter, a lot of value in my forum, but as soon as you get out of your borders and you meet people from other chapters, it's a completely other level. I think that's what EO is because it's a shared culture, as we discussed at the beginning of the call. It's a shared culture, whether you're from Ecuador or the US or Italy or Spain or, Norway. Actually, I don't think there's a chapter in Norway. That's the wrong example. But
anyway, from Norway.
Yeah, exactly. Or New Delhi or Mumbai. It's the same shared value as an entrepreneur. And after that, then, the culture expands. So I think EO as an international organization it's truly that, right?
I love it. I know one thing that we, of course, track on the board for EO Cincinnati is retention, and how do we increase retention. And one of the key factors in longevity for members is attending events outside of their city. And then it goes up even further if they're attending events outside of their country. And I think that just demonstrates the incredible value that members get once they engage outside of their home community. The value of that global community of 20,000 plus entrepreneurs.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with that.
This has been an amazing conversation. We're going to wrap it up with a lightning round global edition of a couple quick questions for you. Whatever comes up is the right answer. What's the most inspiring EO event you've ever attended, and where was it?
Oh, wow. Hard. Well, I think for me, it's probably because it was the first one, but the GLC in Cape Town was absolutely mind-blowing in terms of the people I met. Yeah. I mean, including you. I'm not sucking up to you, but like including you and your wife and a lot of other people. But I said the speakers.
Amazing people you met at that event.
Yeah. Yeah, and amazing speakers, like a really top event. Yeah.
Wonderful. What is one city you visited through EO that surprised you?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think Boston. Maybe it sounds strange to listeners in America. I always thought Boston was kind of a boring city. I don't know, because everybody said, like, it's European, blah blah. So to me, like, why would I travel to a city that is European, right? And I actually had the pleasure to go there twice already, because I enrolled in the Entrepreneurial Master Program. That's also another benefit of EO. And so basically, I've been there, 2 years in a row. I'm going back next year, and I was really surprised by Boston. It's a wonderful place to be.
Wonderful. That's when Adele and I have flights to Europe that connect through Boston. For whatever reason, that connection tends to be a really long layover. So we try to get out of the airport and get like a quick beer and some good food at a great Boston.
A lobster roll. That's right.
Oh yeah. I love it. All right, here's the last one. I want you to finish this sentence. EO is my passport to blank.
Personal growth.
Oh, beautiful. You nailed it, Guido. Well, thank you so much, Guido. It is always a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate you taking some time to be on our podcast, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully in Valencia in March. Let's see.
There we go.